Hello, YouTube. Um, I wanted to come on and give my thoughts about what happened yesterday in Utah with the assassination of Charlie Kirk, very well known and beloved by a lot, conservative figure uh, in the MAGA and conservative movement. And I want to give my opinion on why I think it happened. And everybody wants to point blame. It's like, oh, it was leftist rhetoric and hateful speech and all that. But I don't think we're looking at the proper issue here. I don't think that. Well, I do believe that leftist rhetoric is a byproduct of this. I don't think it's a symptom rather than the cause. My thoughts above all else is this: the reason why Charlie Kirk was assassinated yesterday was because of the moral failings of the American church. I know that might sound weird and far-fetched, but just hear me out. The American church as a whole, the Christian church in the United States of America, over the last 150 years or so, has been very apathetic and very, very just doesn't want to seem to engage. For those of you who are familiar with Christianity, Christianity is very simply the movement of, I can give you the gospel message pretty quickly here. God created everything. Man sinned because of man's disobedience to God. Sin entered the world, including evil. Yesterday we saw a display of evil. Whether you believe in good and evil is irrelevant. The fact that a man who welcomed open debate and wanted people to think was gunned down because somebody somewhere wanted to silence him is all the evidence you need that evil does exist, whether you believe so or not. Yesterday we saw evil on display, and I believe the reason why we've seen this is because of the moral failings of the American Christian church. Since 1865, when the American church could not even come to a consensus on was slavery an evil that should have been condemned, the American church did not condemn slavery. And since that moment, the American church has been largely apathetic and irrelevant to the national discussion. To my fellow Christians out there, and I am speaking to my fellow Christians, if you're a non-believer, that's fine. I don't expect you to hold this view, and that's okay. But I want you to listen to me. The American Christian church never seems to want to get involved. And when asked why, the two answers you'll get is, while the First Amendment talks about the separation of church and state, where church and state are not supposed to mix, where religion and politics are not supposed to mix, or I'm not of this world, so what's decided doesn't impact my life. And nothing could be further from the truth. The fact of the matter is, every decision a government makes affects your life as a follower of Christ. I don't know whether you know this or not, but Christianity is a political movement, and I'm going to explain why. When Christ gave the Great Commission, where he said, go out and make disciples of all nations, it wasn't simply about go out and make converts and save people and then leave them to their own devices. No, the Great Commission at its truest heart means go out and influence the culture. Jesus was political. No, he did not challenge the emperors or the Roman government. But if you watch Christ's ministry was 3 years of challenging the religious and political standings of the Sanhedrin. The Sanhedrin weren't just a religious organization. There were political leaders in the Roman province of Judea. Jesus was political. Jesus' whole message was political. Jesus' message was go out and make disciples. Disciples are people that follow an order whose sole purpose is to influence culture. Christ influenced culture. The apostles influenced culture. Christianity is a political movement. Whether you believe that as a Christian or not, Christianity is completely a political movement. Christianity's whole purpose is to go in to a godless pagan society, which, by the way, was the first time that God ever used non-Jews to do so. The apostles were sent out into the corners of the world to influence the culture with the message of Christ. The message of, you're a sinner, you need salvation, you cannot save yourself. Why do you think the Romans persecuted and martyred Christians? Because their message was counterintuitive to the Roman political process, where the emperor was God, and you had the Roman pantheon taken from the Greek pantheon. Paul the Apostle went to Greece, which was ruled by all the Greek gods and philosophers. I'm sorry, but Christianity is a political movement, whether you believe it or not to be. And honestly, the reason why this happened was because the church has decided in its infinite wisdom to not get involved. Why, I don't know. If you're going to claim the separation of church and state, let me give you a little bit of education on the separation of church and state. The separation of church and state came from Thomas Jefferson in a letter written by the Canterbury Baptists, who were afraid that the federal government was going to come in and tell them how to worship. That is not what separation of church and state means. He assured them and said there's a wall of separation between the church and the government, and what he meant by that is the government has no right to interfere in a person's political life or religious life. That is the only thing that church and state separation actually means. The church has compromised. The American church is full of easy believism and health and wealth gospels, people like Joel Osteen, people like Creflo Dollar, people like that who do not represent the true word of Christ. Charlie Kirk died yesterday, challenging the culture like he was supposed to, getting people to think, spreading the gospel, challenging people's thought process. Jesus did the exact same thing. The apostles did the exact same thing. Do not tell me that Jesus was not a political figure and he was not politically involved, because he was. The American church is so watered down with cowardice and inability to stand up to the culture and say, this is not right. Abortion happened because the church couldn't stand up and say the murder of unborn children is wrong. Transgenderism happens because of the fact that the church can't stand up and say that is wrong. God created male and female. Whether you believe in creation or you believe in evolution, whatever you believe, God or nature still decided that male and female are the only two biological genders that exist. So sorry to all those people that use, oh, we can transition. No, you're male or you're female. There is no other. There is not 72 genders, whether you believe that or not. The American church has had no desire to get involved because they think that they're afraid to offend people. The gospel is supposed to be offensive. The gospel is predicated on you're a sinner, you can't save yourself, you're going to die and go to hell in your sins if you do not accept Christ. You can't get more divisive and more controversial than that. Christianity's whole job is to influence the culture, to invade, to challenge the enemy. Where in the Bible does it say that we aren't supposed to where in the Bible does it say that we're supposed to just let culture roll over on us? The apostles didn't do that. Every single one of them died, with the exception of John, a horrible death because they would not bow to the culture. And yet here we are, the American church, founded with freedom and the ability to do so. And what do? We squander that. Charlie Kirk died yesterday, not because of leftist rhetoric. Yes, leftist rhetoric plays into that. But no, the sole reason why Charlie Kirk died yesterday and was assassinated and martyred, whatever you want to call him, he died because the American church doesn't have the balls to stand up and challenge the culture and say, no, teaching my child that they can become a girl if they're a boy or a boy if they're a girl is wrong. Transgenderism is wrong. The murder of the unborn is wrong. That is why he died, because the American church doesn't have the balls to stand up and tell the culture, no, you may not influence us anymore. How are we supposed, this is spiritual warfare, and how are we supposed to battle the forces of evil with prayer and all these other things if we sit around, do nothing, and don't come out and say no to things? Abortion happened. We didn't say anything. Slavery happened. We didn't say anything. Civil rights happened. We didn't say anything. Gay marriage happened. We didn't say anything. Do you want to know why God chose somebody like Donald Trump to be president? With all his flaws and all things, Donald Trump is acting more Christian than most Christians I know right now. Where he's saying that all this leftist woke ideology doesn't have a place in the American life and the American experiment. That is what it is. I don't care what you think of Donald Trump. Donald Trump has the courage to at least come out and say, with all his flaws, whether he's a Christian or not, that wokeism is wrong, and transgenderism is wrong, and murder is wrong, and all these things are wrong. So when is the American church going to stand up and have the balls to draw that line in the sand and say, you may not come any further than this. You may not come for our children. You may not have drag queen hour in my school. Christians are supposed to be involved in every aspect of the culture, and we're not. I'm literally convinced that if Jesus Christ himself ran for president, American Christians wouldn't vote for him because he'd be too controversial. American Christians are so afraid of offending people. We are supposed to be offensive in love. We are supposed to be offensive in the sense of telling people their lifestyle is wrong. Divorce is wrong. That is what Christ's message was. Anything that does not measure up to his standards is wrong. Sin is wrong. So no, it wasn't leftist rhetoric that killed Charlie Kirk, though it did play a part. It wasn't Donald Trump and his hate speech. It was the fact the American church can't stand up and do what they're supposed to, which is say to the satanic culture, no, this is wrong. We're not going to compromise. What are we afraid of? We're not supposed to blend into the culture. Everybody wants to quote, in this world but not of this world. Then how about we start acting like that? Me included. I'm here to say now that all these things that the government's been doing is wrong. The church and the people of the United States were supposed to hold the government accountable, and we haven't, which is why we have disrespectful Democrats in office, disrespectful Republicans in office, people who don't respect us. We were supposed to hold them accountable, and we don't. And it took somebody like Donald Trump to finally come in and say, your government doesn't work for you. We're so afraid of spreading the truth, which is the world is lost. It needs Jesus. The country needs Jesus. I've seen people from other countries mourning the passing, the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk is the first successful political assassination since Martin Luther King Jr. So it isn't about rhetoric or liberalism or any of that stuff. It's the fact the American church can't stand up and tell these people, you are wrong, you are in sin, and you need to repent. That is the problem that we are facing. It isn't a political solution. It's a religious solution. And until the American church stands up and makes a freaking stand somewhere, this kind of crap is going to continue. So you know what? I am done with all this baloney. Done. Transgenderism is wrong. Divorce is wrong. Abortion is wrong. All of that stuff is wrong. And you know what? If you don't believe that, I'm sorry. Then you're not a true Christian. You have compromised somewhere in your life. And honestly, it is time for the church to take a stand and be involved like we're supposed to challenge the culture, to challenge the enemy's push of things. Guess what? The enemy's not going to leave you alone if you sit out. He's going to come for you if you're a follower of Jesus. He's going to come for you regardless. This is a spiritual war. And we lost our brother in Christ, Charlie, yesterday as a result of it. He at least had the courage to stand up and challenge people's thinking as a Christian like he was supposed to. And so I'm challenging everybody right now, including myself. It is time to say no. No more to compromise in the culture. That's all we've been doing for the last 150 years. This isn't a left or a right issue. This is a good versus evil issue. And right now, good isn't standing up and doing what it's supposed to, which is challenging evil with prayer, with boldness, with saying, no, you may not come any further. Why should God bless this nation if we refuse to stand up and do what he told us to do, which is to influence the culture the way we're supposed to? Disagree with me? That's fine. I don't care. But until the church stands up and actually gets involved like it's supposed to, and I'm not saying the church has to take over the government. It would be nice, but it's unrealistic. I get that. And not every Christian is called to serve in public office, and that's fine too. But if you're not taking a stand to influence the culture, what use are you being? This is me right now challenging things and telling you what I believe is right and wrong. It should have taken somebody like Donald Trump to actually motivate people to do anything. But maybe instead of criticizing him, maybe you can say that God used him. From 2021 to 2025, people got so tired of the liberal culture that they rose up. You don't think that was God telling people to wake the hell up and move? Yes, Trump has moral failings like any person. But at least he's had the courage to say, you know what? No, you don't have the right to dictate how people can live their lives, and you don't have the right to influence people. And it's wrong. So you know what? I've said what I wanted to say. Disagree, don't agree. I don't care. You know what? Your fragile little ego doesn't bother me. If you can't handle the truth, then you know what? Maybe you should grow thicker skin. So, you know, American church, are you awake yet? Are you awake yet? What more is it going to take to actually get you involved, to stand up and say no to the satanic, godless culture that has influenced our nation, that we have allowed to influence our nation? You want to know why there's people shooting up schools and trying to assassinate the president and killing conservative figures and killing people in general? Do you want to know why? Because the church ain't doing its job. challenging the culture, making disciples, fulfilling the Great Commission. So we think the Great Commission is simply go out, preach, and save some people. That isn't all the Great Commission is. It is to influence people to stop satanic culture. So you know what? Wake up, stand up, get involved, stop sitting on the sidelines, stop praying for the rapture, trying to escape what you're supposed to do. God is going to judge us for what we did or didn't do on our time on earth. And you know what? I'm praying right now that I can do more. Maybe you should all do the same, those of you who don't care. Anyways, I got to go. You'll have a wonderful day. Think about what I said. It's time to stand up, and it's time to challenge the culture. And it's time to be bold like Charlie Kirk was. Make people think. Get people to think. Dialogue. And if they don't like you, so what? Christ said they wouldn't like us. What did he say to his disciples when he said people would reject them? Shake the dust off of your shoes when you leave the town. If people don't want to listen, that's on them. You do what you're supposed to do and take a stand in the culture. You all have a wonderful day. Goodbye.